Gamshi Lakwan, welcome to DiversiTV, the weekly interview show broadcast on Lane TV from the community. I'm Mark Harris, your host. If you're new to DiversiTV, welcome. Gamshi Lakwan means, what's up? Yankala Kalapuya, I'm told. If you're returning to DiversiTV, welcome back. DiversiTV's mission, and we choose to accept it, is to give the mic and the camera to those who don't always get it. To that end, we look at illuminating different issues that come up in the community around educating the community for Lane Community College. Tonight's show, we're talking about the long-awaited, recently constructed, opened Longhouse. And tonight our guest is James Florendo, who's Wasco Lane faculty and steward of the Longhouse and coordinator of Native American programs. And I'll be introducing him formally just in minutes. But we've been talking all day and off camera and about all the various issues that have been going on with the Native community that don't necessarily get reported accurately in the mainstream press. And we'll talk about those because DiversiTV's mission to illuminate those issues in a way that doesn't get talked about. Some of the work that I've done as a Maroon, which is the Taino word for a first-generation African native hybrid, one of the things that we do traditionally is because we have experience with Africa and Turtle Island and also Europeans before they became Americans and before they came here, we kind of recognize some of their tricks. Now, in a talk I once created for my ethnic studies classes and also in response to a workshop, a federally funded workshop I was working on called The Gathering of Native Americans, which is basically a community organizing curriculum for Native communities. So I worked on two of them, the Native one and the African American one. So created a special section called Diffusing the Gift. Now, an elder long ago prophesied, if you will, he recognized kind of like the danger and prophesied that Indian people would three tests: the Bible, the bottle, and the casino. Now, some native folks did actually have alcohol technology. What they did not have was distilled spirits, which came to civilization via Egypt. And in Egypt, they were a state secret, only used by the nobility and not to be used outside of medicinal purposes and not to intoxication. Once Egypt fell and that technology went into Western civilization, started seeing phenomenon when distilled alcohol finally made it to these shores of the Puritans basically giving rum to 4-year-olds to put them to sleep. Now, the East Coast tribes that made first contact with those folks, some of whom who did use alcohol ceremonially, only never to intoxication, and there actually had been a 4,000-year-old prohibition in Indian country of pregnant women using alcohol because they knew it could hurt the fetus. So that's before Western civilization, particularly America, the concept of fetal alcohol syndrome. Natives knew about that long, long time ago. So three tests were brought to Native people: the Bible, the bottle, and the casino. Now, none of those who came before the whites told Native people the story of the horse, because if they did, the Native people would have been learned to kind of look a gift horse in the mouth, so to speak, which is where that phrase came from, especially if it was a Trojan horse. So the concept of Trojan horse is it's basically a weapon disguised as a gift, Trojan horse warfare. So weapons as a gift. So for example, with respect to Native folks, smallpox blankets, certain types of curriculum. Oh, Columbus discovered America. Oh, who are you people? Oh, you're Indians. Don't know who you are, but you're Indians now, right?
Wrong continent.
Yeah, wrong continent, yes. Entertainment, mythology, the myth of the noble savage, basically certain types of religion, certain forms of economics, what we in academic circles call a toxic pedagogy, that is, a curriculum and a learning style as well as what is being taught that divorces people from who they are. And if you want to think of it in terms of the Trojan horse, in terms of malware, like toxic viruses, it definitely works that way as well. So part of the hidden that's being taught in terms of within the discipline of education, it's also not just what you teach, but also how you teach it, and where is the student's voice in the curriculum. Is the student's voice in the curriculum? Can the student find their voice in the curriculum? So that's one of the things that, if a path to success in our society today is education, what is being taught? And that's part of what many of us as Native people find. We don't necessarily find ourselves in the curriculum. We have to bring ourselves into it, if at all. So on the Maroon side, in order to counter Trojan horses, which is an educational practice, we have Nubian horses. And Nubian horses are trained to battle Trojan horses. So the spirit of a person disciplines the mind like a horse, accepts the bridle and saddle. So in that sense, the spirit of Maroon trains the mind to live free and battle slavery or addiction or toxic pedagogy. So one of the things you have to recognize when you're encountering Trojan horses is the weapon inside the gift. You have to recognize how the weapon works, then you can use it as a gift to make you stronger. So the graphic that I use in this particular workshop about the test brought to Indian people, the Bible, the bottle, and the casino, the goal of each one of those weapons, because that's what they were, was to break apart the Indian world, to kill the Indian and make him white, essentially, and leave the man. That was actually United States government policy, respect. Huh?
Make a man.
And make a man.
We weren't considered humans.
Oh, right. And so Bible, bottle, casino, etc. So the long-awaited Longhouse was built.
Mm-hmm.
This is a shot that I took of President Mary Spildey welcoming the pretty much standing room crowd. You can't really get a sense from this picture of how many people are packed into this room in front, this room outside, back of us and outside.
It was jammed. Well
attended. Actually, even more people than the new medical technology building. Mm-hmm. That's our friends David and your brother Brent introducing their song. Mm-hmm. And so our guest tonight, James Florendo. Welcome.
Well, he took Tiwigwa. Kitch, Wasco, good day. Good day to all of you, and look forward to this conversation. We've been talking a little bit all day about what we're going to talk about, Longhouse being hopefully the focus, but you've touched on a lot of things already in terms of prophecies and forecasts and education. So yeah, I'm up for this. This ought to be interesting, because just hearing what you were saying, I don't know which elders or what tribe that prophesied this, but I know for my own tribe, I was told that, yeah, before white people got here, we knew they were coming. And there was no way to stop them. There was, no reason to stop them. They were human beings. They were just coming. They were going to bring many wondrous things and many questionable things. And I think those three things, the Bible, the bottle, and the casino, could all be seen as useful things if used the right way, wondrous things as such, or could be abused people and become questionable things. And so really it was up to us to decide what we were going to do with these gifts that came to us. I really don't see it as a weapon, I suppose, because I really don't see it as a battle. I see the way that I was taught anyway, is that we're all human beings, and these were just poor people. They didn't know, so it was up to us to try and show them, and that's where I see today's Longhouse in the same sense. I think environmentally, socially, economically, our world's in a deep, deep rut, big hole. The practices that American capitalism have brought on the country and the world have caused many questionable things. And how we use what they brought, I think, you know, there's nothing wrong with computers. We a lot and go a long ways, span great distances, we can do things very instantly. Can be beneficial to people if we use it that way, but if we choose to continue to exploit people with them, that's exactly what's going to happen. We're going to continue the road we're going, and there are some environmentalists and scientists who say we're already beyond the point of no return.
Right, yeah.
And does that mean that I'm going to quit? No, it just means I'm going to be a human longer and try and make people realize that we need to treat each other as people now, not in the afterlife. And you can't pay for it. There's no way to pay for it. You know, your deeds are through your actions, sort of a thing. And I'm not applying this to all Native people. I have to sort of throw that in there, that my viewpoints tend to be my viewpoints. I was raised on a reservation. There was no formal sit down with me to tell me what was right and wrong. Aunts, uncles, parents did things for you, you observed. It was your choice, even with them. All right, which of the things that they're doing do I choose to take? Do I choose to follow? And I've done all right.
Yeah, you might not make it into Wasco heaven, but
no, yeah, really. I was told that. You know, I'm sorry. You're a breed. Your blood is tainted. You're not going to go there. And I went, oh, okay. To which my mother replied and laughed when I asked. She just laughed. She said, God didn't create just Wascos. He created everything. So that's the decision maker.
Yeah.
You know, the creator. So, and that's really who I try and live up to anymore. Quite a life of learning, education in and outside the classroom. I'm finding out now, though, that I look back to my elders, my family, my grandparents and aunts and uncles. Their lessons stick with me and apply more to me now than anything I've ever picked up in a book in college. It's good to know those things. You know, I understand the society, I can function, but I certainly don't adhere to all their values, and that's sort of where I see things have gone astray. Hopefully, in the Longhouse, we can open up dialogues of different Native folk expressing their views, and teach all students at Lane. We want, you know, Longhouse isn't just for Native folk, and get into some respectful dialogue. The building has a life of its own that we need to learn to respect, and carry on dialogues that are respectful both to the building and to each other, something that doesn't always take place on college campuses.
Right.
And something that we can, you know, that I really admire, Lane, that through all the controversy, through all the tension and stress,
backstage politics,
everything that's going on,
politics, yeah.
Yeah, all the who's paying for what, and how is it getting paid for, the craze that virtually everybody paid for this Longhouse.
One way or the other.
Everybody is paid, the community, tribes, students, faculty, staff, the LCC board, everybody contributed to this building. Now there's a lot of on why it wasn't built like all the other buildings on campus through bonds and being voted in and just being built in a year rather than 20. But on the other hand, no other building has the spirit that the Longhouse has with that communal growth input to make it grow. And I really do hope that we're going to have the education go on there in that same format, that it's going to be open, respectful. Of course, I think coming from a Native perspective, whatever that may be, because with anywhere from 300 to 600 different tribes, depending on who you're talking to and what status they are, whether they're federally recognized or state recognized or self-recognized. All these tribes have different ways. And there was a time when all these tribes were on this continent living next to one another respectfully.
Yeah.
And it's what we need to learn to do now as states, as counties, as cities. We need to learn to respect each other, and I'm not going to say necessarily get along, but understand how we can work together to make life equitable for all to a certain degree, quality of life. That's what I'm looking at when I don't measure wealth necessarily by dollars. I was never taught that way. You know, your wealth was the wealth of the people around you. If they were doing well, you were doing well as a leader. Prophecies that my mom gave me was that I was going to be a leader, and I said, no, I'm not. She said, no, you are. You're going to do this. And I said, but she threw in all these other lessons too about how to be a good leader. That you don't do it for you, you do people. And in today's world, you know, I've been in education now for over 40 years, and Oregon's got a very unique set of federally recognized tribes. Some have been here for time immemorial and changed their status as sovereign nations, and others have lost it and have it reinstated over different lengths of time, and some have been forced into
confederations, etc.
That haven't always been natural, or tribes like our tribe. You know, we're a Columbia River tribe, and we were moved to the inlands of Washington and Oregon. But for us, and or the way that I tend to look at it intellectually, is that all paths for a long time, some books say 10,000, 15,000 years, there was a settlement at Celila Falls.
Mm-hmm.
And all paths led to those falls, and our people were at those falls, fishermen, and people came for miles. So that interaction was, and that commerce, that trade, that intellectual trading, the genetic trading that went on, was a good thing. And it was tribe, it was something that was honored, to be able to integrate or trade with another tribe meant that your gene pool could be extended, you're gaining new wealth, whatever wealth they have.
Technology, knowledge, news, all kinds of stuff,
So I tend to come at things a little different. There are tribes who are very staunch about their way, and I respect that, but I'm very staunch about my way, and that's the way I've been taught. And in today's world, and a lot in Native politics, I think, because you've been battling for so many years to where you're down to less than 1% of the population, you tend to get a little edgy about things.
And in some ways, well, you should be. I mean, that's kind of, it should be said, that I've been in terms of like working with your predecessor, Frank Merrill, et cetera, for all the time that I've been at Lane, getting behind the idea of a longhouse, being, the difference of that building from other buildings is that the intention is that everybody together to learn about everybody else, not just teaching one side of the curriculum to the Columbus discovered America curriculum, and this is one way of healing and one way, et cetera, et cetera. This intentionally where everybody comes to learn about everybody in a more or less indigenous way.
Yeah, and Lane's got to be, as a community college, has to be looked at in a positive way for allowing that to happen.
Right.
Because there are a lot of campuses.
And you couldn't do that.
It's not happening.
Right.
It's not happening.
Right.
I know of 2 longhouses on community colleges in non-tribal settings, and in this state there's only the U of O's and ours. Portland State has their community center, which is their version of an urban version of a longhouse. I think is more because I see these all as communal centers, not community centers, but different forms of places to gather and learn. Most of the longhouses in this, and I think Oregon really is leading the nation in terms of allowing natives to speak and have a voice.
Which is interesting, considering the history of the state and the history of the state with indigenous people too.
It's like the Oregonian up in Portland used to have a section. I haven't seen it lately, but they used to have a section just on Native news.
Right.
That's pretty big.
Yeah.
And I think in this state, natives are seen in a different way than other racial groups. I'm not going to say minorities, but other racial groups. I don't know. I sense a form of a different kind of a respect, not always given easily, but at least negotiable, which is a step forward in my eyes. If you cut off, again, coming from my trading background, if you can't communicate, or you can't trade, or you can't do commerce with somebody, you know, you're going to isolate yourself. And we can't afford to do that now as Native folk. We can't isolate ourselves any more than we already are. We'll disappear.
Right.
So I don't know where I'm going with that.
Well, no, I mean, I can pick up because, you know, that's where, you know, when I kind of led off where I mean, that's kind of like my tradition where, you know, I'm the son of like Hiawatha. So it's like, well, wait, how did a Choctaw from Mississippi get named for the peacemaker in Six Nations, right? You know, why are you, you know, saying to, okay, you need to find your roots and you need to find what was going on wherever you live, you know, and find out the languages of the people, the names of the people, and follow in a certain, and, you know, so when I research, okay, triple great grandfather was named George Washington. Not that George Washington, but a Choctaw sheriff in an all-black town in Louisiana. You know, it's like the decision, the narrative was, okay, when the red Choctaws are being, you know, rounded up to go to the reservation in their own Trail of Tears, we're deciding, okay, we're dark enough to pass for both Klan, cavalry.
Yeah, no,
we'll do the Klan, okay? Because at least, you know, they'll let you alone in your, you know, your own little town. But that means that you also then have to understand when they're coming, what kind of thing, what lines, what they're doing. And also following a certain tradition which tends to be kind of confrontational, like Frederick Douglass, like Malcolm X, like Martin Luther King, if you're going to be a peaceful way, like be an Alice Walker or an Angela Davis.
And I really don't even see that as confrontational. It's just standing up for your rights.
Right.
Pretty much like this last controversy that we were talking about with Wawajaka, who is now Salilo.
Right.
You know, how non-native groups, with all the best intentions, sometimes can do something and have no clue that they've actually hurt somebody's feelings, or insulted somebody. And
so, in case you don't know what I'm talking about, in case y'all don't read the register card or whatever, there was a bald eagle that was from a raptor rescue center in the Dakotas that was named a Lakota name, Wawajaka. Somehow, the name, instead of being spelled phonetically, Wawajaka, or Wawajaka, however you want to pronounce it.
Don't want to be insulting the Lakota people out there.
Okay, accents and, you know, right? Somehow the name got spelled as Wowie Cakes, which, you know, led to then a whole thing about, let's have, you know, do Indians drink cowboy coffee and have Wowie cakes with it? They'll probably have Wowie scones with their tea. But yeah, Wowie. So, you know, then the narrative as being told, instead of saying, okay, just teach people how to pronounce the name correctly. That's all. I mean, 4 syllables. Wawajaka, you know, Kardashian, you know. But instead, they have this contest, and then Salilo, which is from your folks.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, which you pointed out too, is like waterfalls, and what's that have to do with eagles?
Yeah.
And I understand that the center is trying to honor the whole history of the Northwest and the tribe and its existence, and again, this place that existed for 10 to 15,000 years.
Yes.
And all this in history.
But is that honoring with an eagle? And
well, mostly are you allowing the Lakota people to stand up for themselves and say, this is how we named this bird. Please learn how to say it correctly. That's all you have to do.
Right.
You have to change the name. But it's like, okay. And there was a bit of humor in the article that, oh, this was sort of disrespectful because Wowie cake sounds so silly and blah, 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 blah. And I thought about it. I thought, well, even if it were pronounced Wowie cakes, so what? If that's the way it's pronounced in that language, then that's the way it's pronounced.
Or pronounce it correctly in eagle.
Yeah, whatever the eagle is going to say, yeah, you know. bottom line, brother's not going to know whether he's Wawikakes, Wawajaka, or Salilo, or Bald Eagle, or American Symbol. He's probably just caged up going, oh man, I'd like to get out of here.
Yeah, I mean, Denali's kind of cute. I mean, he's being put with a female eagle named Denali. Okay, so, all right.
And I really don't mean to minimize this point by us making it humorous, but because the point is to stand up for what you believe in, and there are Native community members that did, and out what was behind their comments, and of course the white paper or the Register Guard took it, or some people took it as, you know, people, you know, just going off. There's no reason for them to be mad. What are they all angry about? There's always going to be at least one with that attitude, and you're going, well, no, there's a lot.
Yeah, a lot, and that you're not representing. And here we're educators, okay? So it's about expanding minds. And so expands your mind to learn the correct pronunciation. Do that.
Yeah, let's learn Spanish, or let's learn French, or let's learn English. Let's learn something colonial. But
I mean, because as you pointed out, okay, James moves from New York to Oregon. We don't change the pronunciation of his name, right?
Yeah,
okay, if you move to Mexico City, they might call you Jaime. But that's because it's their language, right? Yeah. But the same principle, and that's the principle of the thing.
And so it's like, okay, folks, and really, it's not so much minimizing the point as much as just trying to educate those people that made decisions to do this about, no matter how small sometimes you feel that you're doing something that it shouldn't bother anybody, or it's nothing really important, that it really is important. It really is important to these people that you respect their language, that the Lakota are a living people. They're not a history. They're not a past.
They're museums.
No, they're living. They're one's working. A couple of them are working at the Raptor Center. And, you know, the young lady that contacted us about it is Lakota and a former LCC student.
Or a U of O student.
Yeah, and in our conversations with me, it's like, okay, I've sort of opened up this can of worms, and I don't know if I want to deal with it. I said, hey, you have to.
Yeah.
You called them on it, now teach them.
You open up a can of worms, you either fishing or gardening, whichever, but you do something with the can of worms.
And, you know, if we can do something positive with it, good. You know, like I said, you know, the eagle is probably not really going to care what he's named, other than recognizing those that are taking care of him. And I've met people from the Raptor Center, and, you know, I have a lot of respect for what they do.
Yeah. No argument there at all.
But on the same token, even if you're doing things with a good will, and you've injured somebody's feelings, you really have to face up to that. You really do have to say, well, okay, I'm sorry, or explain why you did what you did to those people, so that everyone can walk away educated and respected. One of the things that we offered on your suggestion was for these people to have a dialogue with the Native community, the Raptor Center, Register Guard, whoever, in the Longhouse.
Come to the Longhouse. Come
to the Longhouse, and let's talk about it here, because another one of the things about the Longhouse, it has its own spirit and nature to it. And if you go to Lane Community College, you see all what I remember as looking awful like prison. It's all concrete walls, no windows.
Yeah, the style of architecture is actually called brutalism.
I believe. And then you turn around off to the corner on the sides, this little wooden building. And it's got its own spirit. And
landscaping, water features,
windows,
light.
But you know, part of that when you walk into the building is learning to respect the building and the spirit that it has, and carry your dialogues on inside the building with that same respect. My boss, Barb Delansky, is like, you know, that's another thing that we could bring to this, is learning how to talk to one another in a respectful way, even if you have differences of opinions, different politics.
Boy, could this country kind of use that right about now.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Okay, where we are at socially, economically, and whatever, we're down the tubes, and we need to start thinking about how to treat each other as human beings now, not in the future, not in the afterlife, not when we can pay for it, or not when we earn, not when we get somebody elected. You know, it's not about that. It's about being a human being now to one another, and or at least that's the way I was taught. You know, you can't wait. And for me and a lot of Native folk, our lives are very immediate because of our social condition. Okay, when your lifespan is still, I think, under 50 for men,
yeah.
You know, you live your life fast. You live it now.
Well, we've both broken that one. So.
Yeah, still, but I haven't given that up.
Yeah.
I've had to relearn, really, to do that, to live my life every day and constantly remind myself that I do need to treat people with dignity and respect and treat them as human beings. And I found that when you do that, they treat you that way. And I would much rather have that than, there are enough people that degrade me in whatever they want, whatever way they want to, whether it's political, intellectual, or color
or
of my
even
skin.
cultural, because
Yeah.
of, you know, well, who are you? And, you know, I mean, there's all that, the issues that we deal with, for example, within Indian country of sovereignty. So, I mean, the eagle thing was a sovereignty thing. It's like you correctly French, correctly pronounce Lakota.
Yes.
Similar, okay?
Very easy.
I mean, just like the whole thing with, you know, the so-called, you know, with the Cordoba Institute. I wrote about it in a weekly piece. So the Cordoba Institute, you know, bringing in a mosque near Ground Zero, right? So, yeah, some Muslim people got killed, as well as some Native people got killed, right? But, you know, the objections being, oh, be a victory mosque or something like that. Like, wait a minute, the Pentagon is built on a sacred site. There are lots of buildings that Americans built on sacred sites of natives, right? There are, we want to talk about Lakota, like, okay, there is
Black Hills.
Black Hills, okay, who decides to blow up a mountain and carve four white guys in it? How is that an improvement over spirits?
Or stripping the Black Hills from their sacredness for the gold that's in it. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, it goes on and on. So, yeah. I mean, part of, you know, this isn't sour grapes. This is basically saying, okay, it's
this
respect.
Is our this is
history.
This is the history of this nation, and we need to learn and understand it from both sides. It doesn't mean you begrudge people, in my mind, about it. But come on, if you did that, understand why you're doing, that helps you understand why you're doing what you're doing now.
Yeah.
Okay, part of, for me, House again, is to educate those non-Native folk about themselves. All right, look at what you're doing. Look at what you're doing, not only to Native folk or people of color or all the women, children, all these old people, elders, okay, all these different isms or racist, sexist, all that.
Racist, classist, heterosexist,
yeah, whatever it is,
that.
okay. Going on, come on, look at what you're doing. Look at the history. Look at the pattern you're setting. And if you can't change your own way, you will never stop oppressing me as a Native. If you don't understand that you're being oppressed, that you're being used, your mind is being altered in a way that is not human. You know, you're justifying the force that we use all over the world to get the resources that we want for this country. We're the cavalry to indigenous people everywhere. And while I have great respect for military, and my brother was a Marine, the whole warrior tradition, I have a lot for that. You know, I don't begrudge, I like soldiers, I like being, but I don't necessarily like going off and being another Sand Hill or Sand Creek or a Wounded Knee where the cavalry is used to go in and wipe out people just to remove them to the horse that they're sitting on. And it's not the soldiers that are making those decisions.
It's like we were talking about this morning with Avatar. I mean, like, okay, so now you're projecting that into space 4 light years, you know, 4 light years and 150 years into the future. Like, okay, it's not about history, it's what you're doing now, and not doing to those people, but it's doing to you and your folks, children.
Your children. Look what you're teaching them. you're entertaining them with this. You're not you're entertaining them with this whole notion of conquering, this whole notion of oppressing, this whole notion of suppressing a native folk was on that planet.
A $20 million a kilo rock.
Yeah.
So who does that? $20 million a kilo for a rock? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Apparently in the future that's happening.
Yeah. Well, it's happening now too.
Yeah, but it is. It's just, I think, and just as human beings, we need to recognize that our educational system, our social systems, our justice systems are all very, and we've allowed them to get that way. We have not used our power of the vote effectively. A two-party system is never going to work when essentially they're the same party. And, you know, it's like in France, you could have 50 different people running for an election, and some of them are just way out there, and some are just like, yeah, very conservative. You have quite the spectrum. And you probably get the same results in the end, but at least the effort's being made to have all voices out there. And yeah, you have write-in candidates here, but you know, how often do you even see that being used?
You know, it's interesting that you bring that up. So what would it take to have an indigenous two-spirit woman sit in the White House as president?
Would it take?
Well, I mean, okay,
yeah,
we have the same party system, which is basically, you know, people who can appeal to essentially rich corporate interests and be funded and get airtime, right?
That's what it would have to be. It'd have to be like a native Sarah Palin.
A native Sarah Palin? I don't know. I was thinking more Winona LaDuke or something.
No, I mean, I don't think Winona would sell.
Yeah, I know.
Sarah, you'd have to find an Indian.
A native Sarah Palin. Because there actually is one,
that could act and be that intellectual.
Yeah. Well, actually be intellectual, but yeah.
Yeah, well, you know what I'm saying. Yeah. And, you know, I'm not, you know, she's what she is. But I remember during the elections having students come up to me and like, oh, yeah, before, you know, well, who are you going to vote for? I'm going to, you know, I'm for Palin. I go, why are you for Palin, man? She can't even speak. She goes, man, she's cute. I'm going, oh my God.
Okay.
Is that what we're electing our leaders on?
Barbie or something. Yeah.
And it's like, wow. And I'm just going, okay, you've got to be like a 20-year-old young man. You're in college. You're trying to be educated, and this is what you're buying, because it's what they're selling. If you look at it, and it's like, oh wow, scary thought. So when you ask me, what would it take to have a native in that position, you have to have a native that you could sell that way in this political system. I don't know. You know, for people out there that think I'm kind of shooting off out in wild, I actually did get my degree in sociology, so I did do a lot of looking at society, and before I got my art degree, I was actually accepted into law school. So I have done a lot of delving, and in my time I was quite but
a Native American woman lawyer seems to be the model, right? Because Sarah Palin don't have no law degree, so. But a Native American woman lawyer, I mean, we actually know some here at the law school, right?
Well, Winona actually did with us.
And she did, yes.
And, you know, I supported that, and I've met her, but I think she's just too honest to be elected in this country.
And what does that say about a system when you're too honest and you tell fact-based stuff and that doesn't sell?
Yeah. Well, so that's what I'm saying. You got to have a George Bush. You got to have a Sarah Palin. Someone that's not quite as articulate as their backers. Some that you can kind of put your hand up there and puppet thing.
So let's get back to the Longhouse, where
starting to tread dangerous waters.
Well, that's okay. Yeah. I mean, it's DiversiTV. Yeah, so
okay.
You're going to be teaching in the Longhouse. What kind of courses are you teaching? What kind of things are going to be going on? Because I want to illuminate some of the rules that we illuminate. You know, like, okay, don't cuss in the Longhouse. Yeah. Let's start there.
Watch your language.
Watch your language.
Watch your language.
Okay. No money exchanged in the Longhouse. No fraud.
No. Not for no personal gain kind of things. Okay. This is kind of a tough one But personally, don't bring your politics to the Longhouse. You can talk about politics, but don't bring your politics and try to use it.
Okay, so what's the distinction?
Okay, we can talk about issues having political basis.
Okay.
So you can have an intellectual discussion about that, but I don't necessarily see bringing in a politician to have a Republican or a Democratic meeting to tell people to become Democrats or Republicans.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. But when I ran by you the proposal for an event coming up about, okay, let's look at children in the juvenile justice system and cultural competency in the juvenile justice system, which seems to be political in this community anytime you talk about isms, but it's about justice and, okay, how you're treating Native kids and black kids and Latino kids, you know. That's one way.
But if you bring that dialogue into a Longhouse and you have a respectful dialogue about it and actually learn from each other and exchange ideas rather than trying to sell a point, then you're probably more likely to have a resolution that could possibly work.
Yeah.
You know, again, I tend to go on the creative side of things. I am an artist, and my mind tends to that way. That if we can promote healthy dialogue, creative dialogue, then we can come up with some new solutions to problems that we can't seem to find solutions for, because it's this way or this way. And all right, we're going to do it the Republican way or the Democratic way. We're going to do it the white way or the Indian way. We're going to do it the black way or the Latino way. We're going to do it the Spanish way or the American way. There's never
the people's way.
The people's way.
Yeah.
So again, being taught the way I was taught and having this mind that I have, okay, I'm pretty staunch about, hey, we need to quit drawing the line in the sand. Okay, you can't talk. You're confronting people. You're opposing them. You can't have a dialogue if you're talking to me and I'm sitting here thinking of an answer while you're talking. I'm not listening to you. I'm coming up with an answer. Okay, I haven't heard a thing you said. And one of the classes I'm teaching, and it's not learning stories, it's the art of learning and teaching in the oral tradition, which is listening. It's different. It's learning how to listen, critical listening skills, and repeating accurately what you hear. Another class, students are clamoring for me to teach us dance, Native American dance, but it's going to be intertribal dance. There's controversy around that even within the Native community. There are...
About what is an intertribal dance? What's the controversy?
Well, having an instructor teach women in some cultures, that's not proper.
Right, of course.
And that doesn't hold true for all, and on some drums, men only. There's been that controversy before, not within my family or my tribe, but the way that I was learned to drum and sing, which I find a little ironic because all those people that purport those things now in the community or even through the state, I knew when they didn't even know how to dance.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, probably many of them when they weren't even acknowledging themselves as being Native at all.
And I understand that a lot of them have used the drum and that whole circle to owe some sort of, to rehabilitate or rediscover their own lives, which is a good thing. But at the same time, not all, respectfully, not everyone can do everything the same way.
Right.
We all learn in different ways and different styles, and that's another thing that Lane allows. And again, I hate just like keep promoting Lane, but it's like it.
That is what we're talking about, so it's okay.
And it's like, okay, they promote that, different ways of teaching students who have learning styles. And I'm finding out that the Native Circles class, another class I teach, which is a college success course, is all about, initially it was designed to help Native students adjust to community college, adjust to higher ed, and figure out how to go to school. Well, I'm finding out that, well, usually 70% of my classes, they're not Native. But they have the same issues.
Right.
And they like the way that I teach it as opposed to the way they've taken the class else. And I'm not giving them any more or less content. It's the respect that I have for them and the respect that they have for me, and that we can create dialogues for them to let loose a lot of the issues that they face in order to make good decisions in college to succeed.
Yeah.
And you know that.
Well,
you work with a lot of those same people that I work with.
Yeah, we have the same client, and so one of the issues in terms of like a recovery issue is
a rediscovery.
A rediscovery, right? It's not just recovering sobriety; it's also recovering culture, because for a lot of people, recovering culture is recovering sobriety. So part of the question in terms of what would a non-racist, non-sexist, non-classist American society look like? And for a lot of folks,
it was America.
It means well, if you're Irish, okay, you were an indigenous person that was wrested from your land and out over here as a slave, not even allowed to become white, and then allowed to become white to keep down natives and folks. Yeah. So all of a sudden you're an honorary white person, but what does white mean, for you, right? And so these folks, okay, yeah, what were we before we were American? What were we in terms of becoming American? We need to kind of look at, all right, we're here now. What does it mean for us to be indigenous, to live in a way that gets along with everyone else?
Be tribal.
Tribal, right.
You got to be tribal. Everyone's been to me, okay, I run my classes, I tell them, you're a tribe. Okay, you're responsible for everybody in the class. You're responsible for everybody. You have a role. You can teach. You can contribute. I respect your knowledge. Share it with us. I expect you to share it with us, because I'm not so, I'm not so great that I have all the knowledge. And I'm not that professor that's up front and do it my way or hit the highway. Yeah. It's like, no, I respect all people's knowledge, and Lane has a different kind of a student base too. We have I've had classes where I've had 16-year-old husbands and 60-year-old grandmothers in the same class. And that's quite a spectrum to work with. And there's various levels of knowledge there that can be shared. And as long as they do it in a respectful, controlled way, to a certain degree, controlled by, I only mean by controlling the dialogue to keep it respectful, that the issues that students face can come to, they're much more open to figuring out they can deal with their problems if they're listening to their peers having the same issues, and, oh, you dealt with it this way? Oh, hey, that might work for me. And helping one another, figuring out that, yeah, you can actually go through college and help one another succeed here. It's okay. Yeah.
I wonder, I'm reading a book by Duran, who's Eduardo Duran, who's a native psychologist. The book's called Healing the Soul Wound. So it's kind of like recovering culture, and also dealing with native folks, but also dealing with people who have soul wounds, like returning soldiers, in the warrior tradition, dealing with PTSD. Because, my particular bias, culturally and also is basically, if it doesn't work with the people who are the most wounded, it doesn't work. Yeah. So, we need a healing mode for the folks who are suffering with PTSD and all kinds of war trauma, because the systems that, like the military, the VA, are not really dealing with them at all. And so I'm wondering if a technology like the Longhouse can begin to help them out.
In a place where they can talk about these things and do it in a respectful way and a non-fearful way. I'm just guessing, because I've never been in the military. For whatever reason, Creator found a way for me to slip through the whole VA. But when you talk about post-traumatic syndrome, and I had several friends that went, and when they described the horrors that they saw or participated in, dealing with human life in any form, very, very serious thing. And the taking of a life is not an easy thing, and there are a lot of repercussions for it, and we can be as brave and patriotic as we want until we do that. Right. And then it's like, oh my God, what did I do?
It takes pieces out of you.
Yes, it does, and those pieces need to be replaced. That, again, with a humanity, not an excuse, not a political, Band-Aid or social Band-Aid. These men need to feel at peace with themselves again for recovering from the misconceptions that they had about going into what they went into, because I do think that, you know, our leaders or whoever makes the decisions for us to go wherever we go, the rest of us are just fodder for their guns.
How can people use the Longhouse? I mean, how do they get, you know, you talked about a form and all that. Yeah, we're in our last 5 minutes here. So,
we developed a form and procedures, usage guidelines that we expect everyone to go through and read about the respect, how to use it. You know, you're setting up your own event, taking it down, cleaning up, leaving the Longhouse the way that you came into it. Yeah. There's an application form that we're trying to get online. You can contact me at my office at Lane Community College or Barb Delansky. There's a form that you fill out, tell us what your event is, when it's going to be, what use it has to Lane, or what use it has for Native students in general. The priority is going to always be for Native students. That's what it was built for, in my mind. And it's first. Yeah. And then community, tribes, if you want to get involved at the Longhouse, I hope that it's through the students that
you send there.
Yeah. Or that, you know, if you're an alumnus or your founders or your drum group, you know, you have like Frank, okay? He's, you know, as long as he's around, as long as his family's around, he's related to the Longhouse. He will always be part of Lane. And those are the kind of connections, again, they're more familial and relationships that, okay, that's what I want to see go on there, and in an educational format. And you're going to have to describe that to me on this form. And that doesn't mean that, okay, the Girl Scouts can't have their meetings, or the Boy Scouts, or the McKinney group, or, you know, we've got a request today from a recovery group. And I'm going, yeah, those things are all possible. They're going to be prioritized, though, through students. Yeah. If students have access to it and can benefit from it. And if there's space, everything will be open. You know, it won't be rented. There are no fees. Money does not pass hands. You can't raise money there, in my mind. Okay, you can't have an event that's about race or politics. If you want to discuss that stuff, fine. But you know, to actually do it there, no. And you know, that's pretty much it. We're hoping now, and we're starting to see at least trying to schedule a Longhouse term to term, because we do have classes going on there. Jeff Harrison is teaching, I believe, a writing class in there. I think we've had Jim Garcia once. I think he's got a leadership class, and so yeah, just about anything really.
All right.
So long as there's space and time, the priorities are on the form, and those priorities will always be Native students, because that's what it was built for.
I want to thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me again.
Yeah. If you like what you've seen, contact us at liveclass@lanecc.edu. Put DiversiTV in the subject line. Tell us what you liked, tell a friend what you saw, and suggest topics for us to deal with. Until then, go well, stay well, and as my folks say, stay strong.